This is a story about cyber espionage.
Connected through, networks for the most part.
The police officers alleged that Andrew Phelan had sent an extremely violent and graphic
NSA and the intelligence community in general is...
What concerns critics are the broad powers the law will give China as it pursues
In 2024, a leak from a Chinese cybersecurity firm revealed something the world had long suspected. Beijing wasn't just defending its digital borders, it was building an army. Chapter 1. The 48-hour window. In 2021, China rolled out a law that sent shockwaves through the global cybersecurity community. It wasn't loud. It didn't make front-page news. But to those who understood its implications, it changed everything. The regulation on the management of software vulnerabilities requires any business operating in China to report newly discovered software vulnerabilities to the Chinese government within just 48 hours of discovery. That means if a Chinese company, a foreign firm, or even a private individual finds a hole in critical software, say Windows, Cisco, or iOS, they have 2 days to tell Beijing. Not Apple, not Microsoft. Beijing. The official reason? To prevent leaks and misuse. The government claimed it wanted to help secure the digital ecosystem, protect users, and reduce damage from exploits. But cybersecurity experts around the world saw something far more ambitious and far more dangerous. Because while Western governments like the United States do collect software vulnerabilities through agencies like the CIA or NSA, researchers in those countries are not legally required to share them. In China, compliance isn't optional. The result? A flow of digital vulnerabilities straight into the hands of a government known for its advanced cyber capabilities. And that flow doesn't just stay in a vault, it fuels something much bigger. Chapter 2. Training grounds for digital warriors. If China is building a cyber army, then its hacker competitions are the training camps. According to an Atlantic Council report, since 2004, China has hosted 129 hacking competitions. The majority began after Xi Jinping rose to power, when cyber strategy was elevated from a side project to a national security priority. The most famous of these is the Wangding Cup, a state-sponsored hacking event that drew in 35,000 participants. It's not just about showing off. These events have a clear pipeline. Find talent, recruit fast, deploy quietly. In the United States, hacking competitions tend to be more decentralized, often sponsored by universities, private firms, or nonprofits. But in China, the line between public and private is blurry. What looks like a weekend coding contest can quickly become a recruitment opportunity for state intelligence agencies or military-linked tech firms. Winners don't walk away with just prize money. They're often hired into firms that receive government contracts to perform operations the state doesn't want to be officially connected to. And then came the leak. Chapter 3. Inside the iSoon leak. In 2024, the world got a rare, unfiltered look into China's cyber ecosystem. A massive trove of documents from a cybersecurity firm called iSoon appeared on GitHub. Analysts quickly determined the leak was likely authentic. What the documents revealed was jaw-dropping. iSoon wasn't just a security contractor, it was actively participating in cyber operations. WeChat logs between engineers showed hackers casually discussing infiltrations. One conversation reads like a chat between coworkers troubleshooting a bug, except they're breaking into someone's mail server. Hey, do you think you can get into the system? Yeah, like 80% chance. If I don't get in, I'll leave immediately. Seconds later, mail server, mail server. They were in. But it wasn't just the casual tone or technical detail that shocked observers, it was the scope. iSoon had contracts with national security agencies, provincial law enforcement, and even city police departments. That's like the police in Cincinnati or San Diego, hiring hackers to run offensive cyber operations. The iSoon files confirmed what many suspected. Chinese cybersecurity firms often operate as private proxies for state-led hacking. They blur the line between civilian and military, private business and government force. The US Department of Justice has already indicted iSoon employees, accusing them of working with Chinese intelligence to conduct cyber espionage. Beijing, predictably, denies involvement and counters by accusing Washington of running similar operations through its own tech infrastructure. But the leak did more than expose names. It revealed a system deliberate, well-funded, and deeply embedded into everyday governance. Chapter 4. Living off the land. China's hackers don't always come in loud. Some of the most dangerous cyber operations are the ones no one notices. Take Volt Typhoon, a name given by Microsoft to a state-backed Chinese hacker group. In 2023, Volt Typhoon was caught infiltrating critical U.S. infrastructure, including systems tied to the military, utilities, and telecommunications. They weren't launching malware or ransomware attacks. Instead, they were practicing a technique experts call living off the land. That means using tools and credentials already inside the system. No flashy code, no digital alarms, just quiet, persistent presence moving through the network like a ghost. That makes them almost impossible to detect. The FBI says Volt Typhoon may have gained access to command and control systems, leaving backdoors that remain active to this day. One of the targets was Guam, a U.S. territory with a key military base closest to Taiwan. The timing wasn't random. As tensions rise between China and Taiwan, Guam becomes a vital link in the U.S. response chain. Disabling or delaying military coordination through cyber attacks could be decisive in any future conflict. A Bloomberg investigation later revealed that Volt Typhoon had likely breached telecom networks, federal systems, and military platforms in Guam. Some of the damage may never be fully undone. It was a warning shot. Chapter 5. The Origins of a Digital Superpower. Long before the headlines about Volt Typhoon or the Tianfu Cup, China was already laying the groundwork for what it would later call informationized warfare. It started quietly in journals, speeches, and closed-door military sessions. In the early 1990s, the People's Liberation Army was reading reports from the West about computer virus weapons. They weren't just curious, they were worried. A PLA publication called Foreign Military Arts described these new threats as strategic. They believed viruses could hit both civilian and military targets, turning cyberspace into a new battlefield. But the real shock came in 1999. That year, during the NATO bombing of Yugoslavia, the United States mistakenly bombed the Chinese embassy in Belgrade. The US claimed it was an accident, but Beijing didn't buy it. China's leadership believed the attack was intentional, and more importantly, it revealed how little leverage China had against American military power. That moment was a turning point. The Chinese military began accelerating cyber development not just as a curiosity, but as a strategic counterweight. In 2000, then-President Jiang Zemin gave the green light. China needed to develop coercive cyber capabilities tools that could be used for offense, not just defense. He told the Central Military Commission, "Information warfare is in the ascendant on the stage of warfare." And by information, he meant exactly what you think: data, networks, code, signals. Not tanks or missiles, but malware and exploits. China didn't just invest in weapons, it built institutions. In 2002, the PLA created the All-Military Informatization Leading Small Group to manage the country's transformation. Their goal, dominate not just cyberspace, but what Jiang and Hu Jintao later called the electromagnetic domain, including satellites, communication infrastructure, and sensor networks. By 2011, China had created its first Cyber Blue Team, a specialized force within the Guangzhou military region, trained to test and probe other PLA units for vulnerabilities. They weren't just building tools, they were simulating war, and they had help from history. China was watching the world closely. The color revolutions in Eastern Europe, the Russian cyber attacks on Georgia in 2008, and then the big one Stuxnet. The joint US-Israeli attack that sabotaged Iran's nuclear centrifuges in 2010 stunned military leaders everywhere. But for China, it was validation. Cyberspace wasn't just a battleground. It was a place where small pieces of code could destroy billion-dollar infrastructure. By 2014, everything changed. Thanks to Edward Snowden's disclosures, China realized just how vulnerable its systems were. The US wasn't just defending networks, it was inside everything: phones, routers, cloud servers. Beijing saw this as a wake-up call. It passed the cybersecurity law in 2017 and launched two powerful new institutions: the Cybersecurity and Information Leading Group and a full restructuring of its cyber command chain. Then came Xi Jinping. Xi made cyber a military priority equivalent to space and sea power. He told the military they had to abandon their ostrich mindset, no more burying heads in the sand. He wanted offensive and defensive parity with the West. "If others use airstrikes," he said, "and we are still using swords and spears, that is unacceptable." And China's response wasn't theoretical. In 2015, the PLA launched the Strategic Support Force, or PLAS-FA Mega Division, that unified China's cyber intelligence, attack, and defense efforts under one umbrella. This wasn't just about hackers, it was an integrated digital army. And then, in 2024, the PLASSF was dissolved and reborn as something even more focused, the Cyberspace Force of the People's Liberation Army, a dedicated branch for cyber warfare. Chapter 6: The Shadow Web of State-Backed Hackers. Today, if you want to understand the scale of China's cyber ambitions, you have to look at how deeply the state has integrated its civilian and private sectors into the mission. In China, hacking isn't just a government job, it's a career path, a national duty, and sometimes a competition. Chinese university students don't just study cybersecurity. They're scouted, recruited, and even trained by state agencies like the Ministry of State Security. Hacking competitions are organized not just for fun, but to find top-tier talent and funnel them into national service. And once you're in deep. Many of the country's most advanced hacking operations are what researchers call APT groups, Advanced Persistent Threats. These are teams that don't operate from military bunkers but from private offices, cybersecurity startups, or even university labs. They take contracts from the state and often work on targets like telecoms, satellites, infrastructure, and intelligence networks abroad. In 2017, Foreign Policy estimated that China's hacker army included between 50,000 and 100,000 individuals, and that number might even be conservative today. Xi Jinping has been crystal clear. Cyberspace is not just about protection, it's about deterrence and, if needed, retaliation. In 2019, he declared that China's ability to strike back in cyberspace had grown significantly. In 2020, Chinese firm Qihu 360 accused the CIA of carrying out its own global espionage campaign. And in 2024, a Chinese foreign ministry official made the rare admission that some Chinese cyber attacks were a response to US policy on Taiwan. This wasn't denial, it was a signal. Chapter 7: Dros and the Domino Effect. So what does an actual cyber attack look like? At Dros, a US firm specializing in industrial control system security, engineers have built miniature labs to simulate exactly that. They demonstrate how a hacker could break into a water utility system using nothing but a laptop and basic tools. By mimicking an operator, they remotely adjust the water flow, no passwords needed. In the real world, that kind of attack has devastating consequences. Take out the electricity grid in one city, and backup systems kick in. But what happens when those backup systems generators powered by oil can't function because the oil refinery is also down? You end up with a domino effect. Water stops flowing, food can't be refrigerated, hospitals run out of power, emergency services lose communication. Within a day, even well-prepared urban centers could be facing serious humanitarian crises. And these aren't just theoretical scenarios. Chinese hacker groups like Salt Typhoon have already breached American telecom providers like Verizon, AT&T, and Lumen, siphoning off call data and communications logs from millions of citizens. In this kind of cyber conflict, the front lines aren't battlefields. They're databases, server rooms, and routers. Chapter 8: Delete America. The Chinese government has spent the last decade quietly advancing a sweeping initiative with a provocative nickname inside tech circles: Delete America. The goal? To replace foreign technologies with Chinese-made alternatives across every layer of the digital ecosystem. From operating systems and semiconductors to enterprise software and cybersecurity tools, Beijing wants full-stack control, and it's moving fast. Chinese hacking competitions like the Tianfu Cup now dedicate entire categories to breaching domestic products, phones, EVs, surveillance tools. These aren't just security tests, they're stress rehearsals for when Chinese-built systems take over foreign roles. It's not paranoia. In Beijing's eyes, the US and its allies already run too much of the global tech stack: cloud servers, search engines, chips, mobile ecosystems, even submarine cables. In any future geopolitical standoff, these could become choke points. So China is de-risking. By promoting homegrown alternatives and preparing them for cyber resilience from the start, Beijing aims to outgrow its dependence on Western tech. What it can't replace, it'll try to control. Chapter 9: The Shadow Firms. Much of this strategy depends on a growing web of quasi-private cybersecurity firms, companies that look independent but are closely linked to the state. We've already seen this with iSoon, the firm exposed in the 2024 GitHub leak. But they're not alone. Others like Xfocus, Boyusec, and Huaying Haitai also operate in the blurred space between civilian contractor and military proxy. These firms participate in domestic competitions, receive government funding, and according to multiple intelligence reports, feed vulnerabilities back into offensive cyber programs. In March, U.S. prosecutors charged several iSoon employees for carrying out state-directed cyber attacks against American companies. The court filings revealed a disturbing level of integration between white hat researchers and black hat operations. Even more concerning, many of these contractors are embedded in provincial governments and local police departments. This decentralization means that cyber espionage capabilities are being scaled across the country, far beyond Beijing. And these firms don't just target foreign tech giants, they're also used to crack down on dissidents, religious minorities, and journalists within China. Surveillance and cyber warfare aren't separate goals. They're two arms of the same strategy. Chapter 10. America's Digital Counterattack. China's rise in cyber has not gone unnoticed. In response, the U.S. has begun to rethink its approach to cybersecurity and digital diplomacy. Agencies like CISA, also known as the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency and NSA Cyber Command, have been given expanded mandates to detect, disrupt, and deter foreign cyber actors, especially those linked to Chinese state interests. And the US isn't just playing defense. Behind closed doors, it too runs zero-day stockpiles, offensive hacking units, and red teams that simulate attacks on friendly infrastructure. But there's one crucial difference. American firms are not legally required to hand over vulnerabilities to the government. That may be changing. After a wave of Chinese-backed attacks on energy grids, defense contractors, and logistics networks, lawmakers are debating whether a mandatory disclosure rule similar to China's should be introduced in the West. Others argue the US should invest more heavily in bug bounties, hiring ethical hackers to uncover and disclose flaws before foreign actors can exploit them. Meanwhile, the Biden administration had quietly launched a coalition of allies, including Japan, South Korea, Australia, and several EU states, to share threat intelligence and coordinate cyber responses. Call it a digital NATO. The message is clear. The world is preparing for cyber conflict not as an abstract risk, but as a frontline battlefield in 21st century geopolitics. Chapter 11. The final stage of warfare. In traditional warfare, you can see the buildup. You watch tanks line up. You hear the planes take off. But in cyber warfare, everything is already in place. Right now, hackers from both sides are probing, planting, and mapping networks, waiting for the moment they're told to strike. That strike could look like a blackout, a disabled refinery, a corrupted data center, a paralyzed port. No bombs, no invasions, just silence and then collapse. Experts fear that when future conflicts break out, cyber will no longer be a prelude. It will be the first move, and perhaps the most decisive. As one cybersecurity analyst put it, the question isn't whether China has a cyber army, it's whether the world is ready to fight one. Chapter 12. The future of cyberpower. So how did we get here? The United States built its tech dominance over 50 to 70 years, pioneering computing, telecommunications, and the internet. China, by contrast, has compressed its rise into just 2 decades. And yet, by many estimates, the People's Republic of China now operates the largest cyber force in the world, bigger than the United States, Russia, North Korea, and Iran combined. It's a strategic choice. Rather than outspend the West in tanks or jets, China has invested heavily in cyber tools, intelligence capabilities, and influence operations. They aim not just to disrupt, but to control the digital environment, both at home and abroad. Western governments are trying to push back, not just with firewalls or arrests, but with policy. The hope is to create international norms for responsible behavior in cyberspace, requiring disclosure of vulnerabilities, limiting espionage against civilians, and improving global cybersecurity cooperation. But that's easier said than done, because if the iSoon leak showed anything, it's that China's cyber strategy is not just offensive, it's systemic. From local police departments to national intelligence units, from hacking contests to lawmaking, Beijing is laying the foundation for a long-term, fully integrated cyber force. And the world is still catching up. If you found this deep dive into China's growing cyber capabilities insightful, consider giving this video a like. And if you want more documentaries like this, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Got thoughts, questions, or theories of your own? Drop them in the comments.